Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage from Alliance Data, Chad Taylor and Sean Hours.
Hi, everybody. We get the coveted slot of right after lunch, and I see by the attendance that it was a well sought after slot. So hopefully we'll try to keep you guys awake for a little bit here, talking about how we at Alliance Data have rolled out our knowledge management tool with eGain. Here with my partner in crime,
Sean Hours. Nice to see everybody.
We are both in the Alliance Data Card Services business, and we work for our Care Center Operations organization. A couple of things we're going to talk about today. We'll give you a little overview of who is Alliance Data. We're going to talk about how we got towards knowledge management and made the decision to go with eGain. And then Sean is going to talk about how we rolled it out, some of the concepts that were used, and how we also saw some of the results from that rollout. Before I get started, I wanted to acknowledge Trevor Anderson was our customer success person when we first started. When we first met, we realized we both had a lot in common. At the time, I had 4 kids, he had 5 kids, lots of pets. I have 5 dogs and 5 cats. Little did I know by the end of the implementation of the eGain tool that I would then have another child. So now I've met Trevor's 5. So Trevor, I see your 5 and I call, so that's it. If you go for 6, I'm folding, so I'm done. But so if you see me dozing off in any of the other sessions, it's because I have a 2-month-old baby at home and an 18-year-old son. So a little bit of a dichotomy there between things going on in my household. All right, so who is Alliance Data? Alliance Data is made up of 3 different divisions. We got Epsilon, Loyalty One, and then the Alliance Data Card Services. Epsilon is the leading brand partner in marketing and loyalty solutions, delivering marketing and digital marketing to lots of consumers in the US. They're the leading database of marketing and loyalty data. Loyalty One, any folks here from Canada? If you are, you're probably familiar with the Air Miles program, which is the leading loyalty program in Canada, one of the largest. And then the last piece, which is Alliance Data, which is card services. So we provide branded credit card programs, private label, co-brand, and commercial programs to our brand partners. All right. So one of the principles that drive Alliance Data is the whole know more, sell more. So we use data-driven insights, innovative products and capabilities, and drive top-line sales for our brand partners. We really are all about driving the loyalty and having a client and customer-centric approach to our service and our programs to help our brand partners know more and sell more about their customers. We have 4,300 Care Center associates all across the country. We've got 3 locations in Ohio, a location in Lenexa, Kansas, Westminster, Colorado, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, Rio Rancho, New Mexico, and we're soon expanding to San Antonio, Texas. So lots of calls. We get about 53 million calls, both through our IVR and to the floor annually. And we answer about 15 million calls in just the customer care organizations every year and growing. All right, so how did we get here? One of the things that, oh, there we go. All right, so one of the things that we started off with when we were looking at knowledge management, I think Ian from Forrester brought up some good points earlier today about the type of interactions that associates get now in the care center from a customer care perspective are getting increasingly more complicated. As we work with our technical and our marketing folks at Alliance Data to help improve our self-service initiatives, so increasing ways for customers to self-service so they don't have to call us, those inquiries that we do get, like Ian said, are getting more complicated. So because of that, our associates need the tools and the functionality in front of them to be able to answer those questions quickly. We started on this journey of knowledge probably back in 2003 when we had binders and binders of books on associates' desks, which was a very efficient and very secure situation. So went through a process to take all of that information, digitize it, created Word documents, created PDF documents, and we loaded it into an environment that we built internally for basically with a web page overlay, and the associates would access those information through our web page that you see an example of there. We did eventually add a Google search appliance to that web page and continued to make improvements, continued to roll out and change the information as much as possible. But if you see there, that's an example of like what one document, the first page of one document would look like that an associate would access. Now when they pull up that document, it could be 10, 15, 20 pages of information that they would have to scroll through just to find the information they were looking for. So about 2 years ago, we realized with the growth that we were seeing in our company that we weren't going to be able to move forward in our care centers and still provide the customer-focused service that we want to provide with the tool that we have that we built internally. So we started looking for a new tool. So we were basically rolling with 2003 Toyota Camry, which is what I have. See, it's not a Camry because the C fell off the back. So it's a Toyota Camry. It's a one of the kind. If you guys ever want to see a picture of it, I can get one for you. It's very nice. But we wanted to, upgrade, not anything crazy. We can't afford a Ferrari, nor do we know how to maintain it. We just wanted like a really nice Honda Pilot, right? So we decided to start on the journey of trying to figure out what tool to use. So we started off at the beginning. We had already gotten a lot of feedback from our associates and leadership. So we started off with a gap assessment. And what we did there is we did a couple of different things. We did associate interviews, we did associate surveys, we interviewed the business leaders to find out what things were important to them. And then we evaluated any tools we already had in place. So we have a pretty robust SharePoint environment in our organization. We have a fairly agile IT organization that's usually pretty helpful with us if we're nice enough to them and buy them pizza every once in a while. They're nice enough usually to help us develop things internally, but we knew that we needed something a lot more agile and configurable to meet the needs of our business. So after that, we did some software evaluations, put out requests for proposals, and we realized really quickly that the companies and the organizations we were meeting with, the tools were way too wieldy. They required way too much administration on the back end, so we scaled it back a bit, changed the type of software we were looking for, and then that's when we figured out that eGain was the right tool for us. And we had to build the ROI and business case to present the leadership, and then finally we made the final vendor selection. And since then it's been a really exciting and a lot of change going on in the organization because we not only adopted the new software, but we also adopted the knowledge-centered support concept. So if you're not familiar with that, that's really just the concept that drives the end users owning the knowledge and being able to provide direct feedback on that knowledge real time. And that's one of the big things that eGain provided that we wanted to make sure we were able to provide that functionality to our associates. So the good thing for me though is once we selected the vendor and signed the contract, I could just dump it all on Sean, and then he had to take it from there and try to figure out how to implement it. So I will hand it over to Sean, and he will tell you more about that process.
Yeah, this is where I came into the picture. So we brought on eGain, and we named the tool Knowledge Central. I think one thing Chad left out from the previous version of our content management system was that he built it. And so I came in and we put it in the dumpster. So he wanted to do that too, but it was his baby years ago, and the business had just simply outgrown the technology. There was so much information. Over the course of 4 years, the business had doubled in size, so there was just no room to expand that. So that's why we needed to move towards something very different. So when we sat down and kind of figured out how we were going to approach all of this, that's where we arrived at We're going to do this the right way, we're going to do it once, and we're going to drive change throughout the entire organization. So, raise your hand if you're familiar with the Knowledge Center support loop and the principles that go along with it, right? Everybody's sharing the information all the time. We need to evolve the content. One thing that our business is still learning, and we just had meetings last week, is that where we sit right now with our knowledge base is not the same place that we're going to be 6 months from now, 12 months from now. We rely on everybody's information and all of the input so that we can build this thing so that it is what the business needs it to be. So we've decided we were going to do this. In order to make the Knowledge Center support principles work, we had to take the giant documents that lived in the old legacy system that we affectionately called CARE, and now we don't care anymore. So as he mentioned, some of the documents were 3 pages, some of the procedural documents were 70, 75 pages. And if I'm an associate sitting on the phone, and I've got somebody talking to me and I need to figure out how to take an electronic payment for somebody, I don't need to read through 70 pages of information to try to find that. So from a Knowledge Center principle perspective, if the associate wants one question answered, I'm going to provide that one answer to that question. So one question equals one answer. So when we put it all together, we decided that we were going to, that was interesting, we were going to put together different portals, different websites, if you would, for all of the lines of businesses that internally face. So this knowledge base is completely internally facing. Our customers don't see it. This is strictly to help our associates do their job better, to do it more efficiently. So what we've got here are the 8 associate-facing portals or websites that we use to support the business. Everything from fraud, which is the account protection. We have an entire line of business for co-brand. We have private label credit cards that have an entirely different audience, an entirely different set of procedures that they have to follow. And the thought being, the old system, all the information was just dumped in. So if you're a collector and you want to know how to take an electronic payment, that electronic payment process is very different from someone in our customer care environment. And before, it was just all mixed in together. Now, we've segmented out all the information so that if you are in the co-brand, the Visa portal, that's all you're going to get is that information. So when you look up how do I take an electronic payment, it's going to be how they do it from a customer perspective, not the collections perspective. So we wanted to break up all that information, and this is what the finish line looks like. So when this is for our PLCC portal, so our private label credit card customer care associates, when they log into their day, every day, this is where they go to. All of the information that they need to do their job is contained within this one website. Daily announcements, memos, everything that's impactful to the business, all of it happens right here. So they're required to log in every day so that they get all of the information. So now that we've figured out how to segment out the business, how do we hand them the information that they're looking for? So all these fancy icons up here, every single one of them is clickable. So everything's topicked out, everything from a taxonomy perspective is put in there. But the best way, and one of the reasons that they chose this tool, is that the search engine is extremely robust. So whenever we talk to anybody, I want them to think of this website as Google for work. You go home, you want to figure out how to cook the best hamburger on the planet, you open up your laptop and you go to Google. What do they give you? Anybody know what you see when you go to Google's homepage? A blinking cursor. And that's for the whole internet. All I want them to do is search our 25,000 articles. But the legacy system had them kind of memorizing where things were, file paths, all that stuff. So the focus was, I don't know where anything's located, rather than being the focus, how do I find things to help me do my job? So it's all about the change management and changing the way that the business really focuses on how we deliver the information. So now we deliver information to them from a process perspective. So what you're looking at here is that electronic payments piece that I was talking about. Rather than delivering them all 78 pages, they do Control F and try to figure out keywords, and hopefully they can find it within 5 minutes. we're going to hand them what we call a table of contents or a page of helpful links. So that now it's broken up, and they're going to ask the one question about these electronic payments. They're going to click the link that they want, and it's going to present that to them. Whether it's one paragraph, lots of pretty pictures, because we all know words scare people. Nobody wants to read anything, especially if it has to do with their job. I know that for a fact because we know that nobody reads our announcements that we put out, thanks to the tool. System release memos, it's going to change the way you do your job. 112 out of 5,000 people read it. Great. So, that conversation for another day, but we've talked about changing the way we title our articles, right? Anybody familiar with the concept of clickbait? You know, you go to Yahoo and you need to know the 5 best mustaches in Hollywood. So that kind of titling to drive traffic to the information rather than the dry, boring, business-oriented stuff. So that, again, is another piece of the change that goes with the business so that people cannot take themselves so seriously so that we can get people to actually put eyeballs on what's important to them and still get the message across that everybody's looking at. So now that we've figured out how we're going to kind of segment out this information or chunk it, if you were, how are we going to do it? What topics do we need to wrap around? So there's 2 kinds of information that live in business. How do you do something and why do I do it? Process and reference. So we have 2 kinds of documents in our system, procedural and referential. From a compliance perspective, because compliance is our best friend, and they always keep us on our toes, they want to have all of the procedural elements handed to them. So they asked us to identify all of the procedural documents. So we put a giant header across the top that says procedure. So now they can go out and find them, they can review them. We have a cadence on a 12-month rotating basis so that the documents come up for review 30 days before they're set to expire. We can send them off to compliance. They will review them, they give us a thumbs up, we can publish them for another 12 months. If changes need to happen, then we will make those changes and then republish them. So we always, always, always have the related articles and the topic structure around these documents. So again, if you search for how do I make the best hamburger, right, and you don't find the exact hamburger that you're looking for, Google's going to give you other options without going back and doing another search, right? This is how we want this system to work as well. You search for something, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, so I want you to be able to go to the related articles, which is typically at the bottom, and find what you're looking for. I don't want you to have to search again. And that's the goal here, is that you do one search and you land on what it is you're looking for. So, titling. So we've got all this, we figured out how to segment the business. We're going to pull the articles apart. So when we pulled the articles apart, we went from about 3,500 individual documents. We're now sitting at about 25,000 individual articles internally facing. We have a team of 10 authors that are in the knowledge management department that manage the entire database, all of it. So if anything needs changed, we are the central hub for the entire business of all of the information, and they manage all of it. So now that we know where it's all coming from, when we create the article, how are we going to name it? How do I do something? Why am I going to do it, right? A verb versus noun kind of concept. My customer needs to do, I need to perform kind of statements so that they're actionable. And that's when you're going to pull the procedure. Well, if you ask, why am I doing something, then that's a reference document because I'm going to tell you why that procedure is in place, but I'm not telling you how to do it. So that's where the separation comes from for all of that. And then if anybody has ever done any searches in Google again, and you do a search that has 22 words in it, Google's going to get confused and it's never going to give you what you want. So there is a learning curve in that as well because we can't have titles that are 22 words long. So how can we deliver and be impactful with what we're saying in 4 to 7 words, give or take, right? So we had to go through all of this. We went from 3,500 articles, we broke them all up, we had to look at all the conventions, all the concepts that went into the naming conventions with all of that as well before we built the knowledge base. It was a good time. Last summer was very busy. So, the table of contents. When One of the pushback pieces that we have is from compliance. We have our business risk partners. They like to see procedures A to Z. I still have never received a really good answer as to why, but they always yell at me that we want the procedure A to Z. So we landed at the table of contents being the process map for them. So when the FDIC comes in, because we're involved in the banking industry, they come in and they look at our stuff, they want to see the procedures, they can give them the table of contents and say, what part of this procedure do you want to see? What is it that you feel is wrong? What can we fix? What can we make better? So we now know we have all the links, we have all of the different topics broken out from these procedures, and we can put it all back together, and it's a process map from the process from A to Z. And we built this with 5,000 individual associates in mind, but now we figured out a way to kind of help the 150 or so compliance, business risk folks who their job depends on producing this kind of information for the people who are asking for it. So that was where we landed so that we could all work together to give a system to our associates that works for them. We have, so as Chad mentioned, we have 7 call centers around the country. We have about 5,000 representatives that are on the phone at any given time, customer care, collections, all of it. So that was the focus for this entire system, the entire thing. All right, change. Who's ever dealt with a little bit of change management in their life? This is kind of a textbook example of all of that. We went from a legacy system where people had things memorized. We put the system together, now we have to hand it off to them. And we have to convince them that this thing is amazing, it's going to make their life simpler, and they're going to use it and they're going to love it, and they hated it immediately. Just saying, because it was different. We created training documentation. We got approval from the business to pull every single associate off the phone, no small chore, for 2 hours to train them how to use this system because it was that important. And we would bring them in, and the first thing the trainers would ask is, who loves the old system? Care. Ah, it stinks. We hate it. No good, no good, no good. Well, we're going to fix that. 2 hours of training on this. They would go back out to their desk. The assumption would be that they would now use this fancy new system. Chad's 2017 Camry is landed in his driveway right now. What would they do? They would go drive Chad's 2003 Camry.
It's a nice car.
Huh?
It's a nice car.
It is a nice car. It doesn't smoke or anything. But that's what they knew. That's what they did. So they would always go back and use what it is that they knew how to use without even thinking about this and how it could make their lives easier. So we introduced this system to the first group of associates on October 1st of last year, and we rolled out training in phases. So customer care, a bunch of different levels and lines of business, and we were done training 5,000 people on June 30th of this year. Back in September of last year, I stood on the mountaintop, all the business leaders, every meeting I could ever attend, and say, the old system care will go away in July. It's going to disappear. You need to tell your people, you need to be on board because it's going to happen. Did they believe me? No, of course not. So on July 11th, we pulled the plug. And now they're stuck using Knowledge Central. Now we're forced to change the way these associates think. So we have a built-in workflow within the system. It's called Make a Suggestion. So all the associates have the ability to go in. If they think they can improve something, do it better, click on the little suggestion link, type in their suggestion. It sends it through the workflow. It lands in the authoring team, and we action it within 48 hours. The 9 months leading up to July 11th, we were getting about 20 a day, plus or minus, from the entire business. Mind you, everybody's trained. We pulled the plug on care. Within the first 5 days, we had 450 suggestions. Yeah, we got their attention. Go ahead and laugh. But it worked. So we took the baby steps approach, and we had to because that's how the business wanted it. But they didn't believe that we would take it away from them, and we did. And now all of a sudden, they're using it, and they don't know what they're doing. I never received training on this. I don't know how to use this. You were trained on May 5th from 2 to 4 o'clock. Not only do I know who you are, I know when you trained. So you just walked away and you didn't think about it. And that happens. That's the whole change management piece. So we are now engaging everybody, so we're 90 days into a full-blown launch. And Chad's going to go over some return on investment stuff here at the end. And we're seeing grand improvements on average handle time, that kind of stuff. But it has not been without the pain points, because even within leadership, we attended a meeting last week and somebody from senior management said, well, we've been getting lots of feedback and we've been making a list of stuff that can help you make the system better. For 3 months? Tell me that 3 months ago so we can help you. From the Knowledge Center support principle, right? I need that information to make the system better for them. That's the only way it's going to work, ever. And it's pushing the change management rock around, as I like to say, and so that everybody knows that they have an investment in this system. So now, we're 90 days in, it's all about system maturity, it's all about making the system better. And the only way we can do that is if the associates feel that they have buy-in, they have ownership of the system. As I mentioned, we have the suggestion workflow. I have 2 dedicated members of the authoring team who own that workflow. Their job is to determine if a suggestion is actionable or whether it's not actionable. Prior to July 11th, we were sitting at about 13% of all of our suggestions were actually actionable. Some of them were really good, some of them not so good. One suggestion was I was talking to an old lady and she wrecked her car, like it was chat. And then they hit submit, and I'm not sure what response they were thinking. The best suggestion ever, best meaning worst, we had a new hire associate, he was in his 3rd week. And he hit the make a suggestion button, this is a true story, and we'll call him Jimmy. And Jimmy, in the suggestion text box, typed these words. Jimmy is the baddest MFer on the planet. And he spelled it out, the whole word. And then he hit submit. So I'm at home getting ready for dinner, 7:30. I get a call from one of the authors and said, this just came in, I don't know what to do with it. I know what to do with it, you let me handle it. So we checked a couple months ago, Jimmy's still employed with us, no lie, but he has never made another suggestion. So he now knows that Big Brother is indeed watching over him, but it's impactful because he learned that when you hit that submit button, we're looking at it. So even if he hasn't made another suggestion, I'm pretty sure he knows that if he does, I'm going to get eyeballs on him, without question. Without question. So the moral of the story is we need everybody involved in these internal facing knowledge bases because I'm trying to help them. And if they don't help themselves, I can't help them with that. So we want them to communicate to us. We want them to constantly send emails. I don't care if it comes to me. I just want the information. I don't take any of it personally because the only way I can make it better is if they tell me how it's broken. So with all of that said, we are at our 90-day phase. We've been looking at how everything has been working. And I'm going to let Chad tell you about that.
Yeah, so while we did hear a lot of pushback, and obviously change management, again, Sean said it's really important. We had all of the leadership folks on board. We really had to train from our CEO all the way down, train them on what the knowledge-centered support principle was, and that this isn't something that's going to be out of the box in 90 days, and it's going to be the best thing in the world right away, and you're going to have 100% adoption. We had to really train and explain to them that, you know, this is a process, and it's going to continue to be an ongoing process, right? And one of the things we told the leadership group is if we're getting the right kind of feedback from the associates, which is they're the ones that need to drive the content, right? If we're getting the right kind of feedback from them, the tool that they're using today is going to be 100% different 6 months from now, 8 months, and even 12 months out. So it's got to always be an evolving tool and resource for them, but it's only as good as the feedback they provide. So I think we've made a lot more progress over the last couple of months with the frontline associates. We have full backing of all the supervisors and managers and the customer care centers. But probably the most impactful thing that I can share with the leadership is the true return on investment. So the really good thing about partnering with eGain was they started having these conversations with us from the beginning, and it was already on the top of my list to say, you know, we've purchased this tool, here's the benefit we think we're going to get out of it, and it's not just enough to get the funding and then go away. We always have to come back and make sure that we're showing that we actually made some success that we thought we were going to and make some improvements. So what we've seen over the first couple quarters that it's been rolled out completely is we see all of our key metrics that we care about in the care center have been improving. So escalation calls have gone down. We have a training line that our associates can call if they have a question about a process or unsure how to deal with a certain customer. Those calls have gone down, and year over year, our average handle time has gone down. Now, anybody in the room that knows about average handle time or looks at that as a metric in your business, you know there's multiple different variables, but we are confident based on not only on our handle time reporting, but also just anecdotally listening to calls. You can tell when the associates are using the knowledge base because we have video capture. But also you can tell that they're able to get to the information quicker. And then analytics piece that we have on the back end with eGain, we can actually see how many documents they're touching per session, how many sessions are going, and then how many concurrent users we have in the system. The other sort of tangibles that we are able to measure, our call quality scores have improved. They haven't been a crazy increase, but good enough to attribute some of it to sort of our regulatory and compliance guidelines that the associates have to access on a more regular basis. We have specific procedures when we're opening new credit card accounts that they have to use. Care Center had been repeatedly having opportunities with those audits over the last couple of years, and we just recently saw that all of those audits improved to above standard. And it was a direct result of some of the content that we loaded in the eGain system and had it more readily accessible. So really the return on investment, it came through with what we had built the business case on. So obviously leadership was happy. And I think as we continue down the road and continue to work on with the associates and Sean and team has been spending a lot of time one-on face-to-face with the reps, doing focus groups, continually reinforcing the concepts and helping them use the tool. The usage and the effectiveness of the tool is just going to continue to improve over time. So with that.
Well, one more thing real quick. So the associate roundtables, the focus groups, what we've come away with is that we need to train their bosses. We need to train their supervisors because we can train the associates how to use it, but if their supervisor isn't asking them how they're using it, so if an associate goes to the supervisor and asks a question, I want the first question out of the supervisor's mouth to go, did you look on Knowledge Central? Right. So we have created training, what we've called leadership training, and delivered it to the leadership. So we trained them and we tried to push the rock up the hill. Now we're standing at the top and we're hoping that the rock rolls down and crushes everybody and forces them to use it so that we can have the leadership piece in place and they get the buy-in. And that's what we've learned from the roundtable piece, from an associate satisfaction perspective, is that if my supervisor helps me do this, I'm going to like it better. And they rely on that leadership to help them do that. So that is kind of the last part of this year is going to be focusing on leadership training and just continuing to encourage the leadership elements within the organization, to encourage the associates to use it right, and to provide the feedback.
Good point.
One more announcement.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we were told if you want a ticket to happy hour, you have to be in here for the last session of the day, number one. And number two, we're having a bunch of roundtables tomorrow, right? So if you want to ask me some questions, chat about it, we'll be sitting at a table somewhere in some room in this big hotel doing something, right? Tomorrow morning, all right.
Cool. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.